Captain James Cooper stood at the viewport of the Lucky Strike, admiring the shimmer of distant stars against the velvet backdrop of space. After 15 years of deep space mining, he thought he'd seen everything the universe could throw at him. The asteroid belt of HD 297,842 had proven particularly profitable this run, their holds brimming with rare Earth elements worth enough credits to set his crew up for years. "Captain, we're picking up something strange on long-range sensors," Sarah Martinez called from her station, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. I've never seen anything like this." Cooper turned from the viewport, his weathered face creasing with curiosity. "To find strange, Martinez. The signature's crystalline, sir, and it's massive. Whatever it is, it's changing course to intercept us." The air on the bridge grew thick with tension as a massive shape emerged from the darkness. Cooper's breath caught in his throat. The vessel before them was beautiful, a geometric marvel of crystalline surfaces that caught and reflected starlight like a diamond suspended in space. It was easily 5 times the size of the Lucky Strike, its hull composed of what appeared to be translucent, faceted panels that pulsed with internal light. "My God," Cooper whispered. "First contact." "Sir, they're broadcasting something," Communications Officer Michael Chen reported, his voice tight with excitement. "It's not any frequency we've ever encountered. Running it through the Universal Translator now." The bridge speakers crackled to life with a sound like chimes in a digital windstorm. The translator struggled for several seconds before producing words that made Cooper's blood run cold. "Organic vessel detected. Primitive design. Suitable for collection and analysis. Prepare for acquisition. Collection and analysis." Martinez's voice cracked. "They're talking about us like we're specimens." Cooper's training kicked in. "Open all frequencies. This is Captain James Cooper of the Earth mining vessel Lucky Strike. We are a peaceful vessel engaged in legitimate mining operations in neutral space. We welcome peaceful first contact with your species." The response came immediately, the crystalline tones somehow managing to convey disdain even through the translator. "Peaceful contact unnecessary with primitive organic species. Your vessel's construction methods will be analyzed. Your biological components will be preserved for study. All hands, battle stations." Cooper barked, even knowing their minimal point defense weapons would be useless against a vessel of that size. "Martinez, plot us an escape vector. Chen, get a distress signal to Earth Command. Now." The crystalline ship's surface began to ripple, faceted panels shifting and realigning. Beams of coherent energy lashed out, not targeting their engines or weapons, but systematically carving into the Lucky Strike's hull like a surgeon's scalpel. They're taking us apart," Martinez gasped, watching as whole sections of their outer hull were precisely removed and drawn toward the alien vessel. Cooper slammed his fist down on the ship-wide comm. "All hands, emergency protocols. Get to the escape pods. Move." But the alien vessel had already thought of that. The escape pod bays were among the first sections removed, pulled away with terrifying precision. "Chen, tell me that distress signal got out," Cooper shouted over the groaning of stressed metal. "Partial transmission, sir. They're trying to jam us, but I got something through." Cooper nodded grimly. "Make it count, Chen. Everyone, grab what weapons you can. If they want to study us, let's make sure they learn something about human nature." As the bridge crew armed themselves with emergency rail pistols and mining tools, Cooper activated the final transmission. "Earth Command, this is Lucky Strike. Under attack by unknown hostile aliens. Crystalline vessels, advanced tech. They're breaking through our hull like we're made of paper. If you get this, make them pay. Show them why you don't." The message cut off as a massive crystalline tendril punched through the bridge ceiling, scattering the crew. The last thing Earth Command would receive was the sound of rail pistol fire and Captain Cooper's defiant roar. "You want to study humans? Study this. Then, silence. The command center of United Earth Defense Force headquarters fell into a silence so profound you could hear the subtle hum of the quantum processors running environmental controls. Admiral Catherine Morrison stood motionless before the massive holographic display, her steel-gray hair and weathered features illuminated by the final moments of the Lucky Strike's transmission. She reached out and replayed the last few seconds, studying every detail of the crystalline vessel that had so casually torn apart a human ship. 30 years of military service had prepared her for this moment, but the reality of first contact being hostile still felt like a punch to the gut. "Analysis?" she asked, her voice carrying the calm authority that had earned her the nickname Steel Kate. Commander David Rodriguez, head of Xenotechnology Assessment, stepped forward. "The vessel appears to be composed of some form of crystalline material we've never encountered. Based on how it manipulated its own structure to attack, we're likely looking at programmable matter technology centuries ahead of our own." And yet, Morrison mused, they still made the oldest mistake in the book. They judged us by our appearance. She turned to face the assembled command staff. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we've prepared for. Execute Protocol Thunderstorm." The room erupted into controlled activity. Lieutenant Jessica Hayes approached with a secure quantum tablet. "Task Force Nemesis is ready for immediate deployment, Admiral. The UVS Retribution, Thunderchild, Ghost Dancer, Hyperion, and Stormbreaker are prepped and awaiting your command." Morrison nodded, scanning the crew manifests. She'd handpicked every captain in the task force for their unconventional thinking. "Signal the fleet. I'll take command from the Retribution. Have Captain Marcus Reynolds of the Ghost Dancer begin passive scanning for crystalline signatures matching the attacker." "Admiral," Rodriguez interjected, "shouldn't we wait for full fleet deployment? These aliens clearly possess superior technology." Morrison's lips curved into a slight smile. "Superior technology doesn't always mean superior tactics, Commander. Humanity hasn't survived this long by being predictable." She turned to address the entire command center. "This is the moment we've trained for. Every simulation, every war game, every theoretical scenario about hostile first contact. It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation." She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the 5 ships of Task Force Nemesis. To an untrained eye, they looked almost primitive compared to the crystalline elegance of the alien vessel. Their organic metal hybrid hulls bore no visible weapons, no obvious signs of military capability. "They see our organic technology as primitive," Morrison continued. "They expect us to think like them, to fight like them. But humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to adapt, to turn disadvantage into advantage." She highlighted the ship's schematics. "These vessels aren't just carrying weapons. They are weapons. Every system, every component designed to work in harmony in ways our crystalline friends can't begin to imagine." Commander Emily Chen stepped forward with an updated tactical analysis. "We've plotted their most likely patrol routes based on the Lucky Strike's last known position. Given their demonstrated technology, they likely consider this sector secure." "Good." Morrison donned her command interface, neural links synchronizing with her tactical systems. "They think they've discovered a primitive species worthy only of study. Time to show them why making assumptions about humanity is a fatal mistake." She strode toward the quantum teleport pad, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of human determination. "They attacked a civilian vessel. They killed our people. And in doing so, they've made 2 critical errors. First, they assumed our technology reflects our capability. Second, they thought we wouldn't be ready." The quantum teleporter hummed to life as Morrison issued her final orders to Earth Command. "Maintain defense protocols here. If we fail, implement the Sol system defense grid. But we won't fail." Her expression hardened. They wanted to study humans. They're about to get an education they'll never forget. The teleporter engaged, sending Morrison to the bridge of the UES Retribution. As she materialized in the command chair, her neural links connected her instantly to every system on the ship. Through the viewport, She watched the other 4 vessels of Task Force Nemesis move into formation. "All ships, battle formation Delta," she commanded. "Let's show these crystalline entities why you don't attack human vessels." Task Force Nemesis vanished into FTL, leaving behind a Sol system already preparing for war. The Haelor Empire was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their capacity to turn everything into a weapon. The Haelor patrol fleet hung in space like a constellation of perfect geometric shapes, 12 crystalline vessels arranged in a formation that would have made Pythagoras weep with joy. Their hulls pulsed with internal light, each ship a masterpiece of engineering that had taken centuries to grow to perfection. Fleet Commander Varshin observed the sector through his crystalline matrix, satisfaction resonating through his faceted form. The primitive organic vessel they'd collected had yielded fascinating data about these humans. Such inefficient design, such wasteful use of materials. Their database would be enriched by this specimen. "Commander," his sensor officer chimed, the sound rippling through their crystalline communication network. Unknown vessels approaching through FTL. Varshin's interest crystallized into attention. Configuration. Organic technology, similar to the collected specimen. 5 vessels, approaching in formation. The sensor officer's tone carried harmonics of dismissal. Their design appears equally primitive. The space before them distorted as 5 human vessels dropped out of FTL. They moved with an organic fluidity that seemed almost offensive to Varshin's crystalline sensibilities. Their hulls bore no obvious weapons, no clear defensive systems, just smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. "This should be amusing," Varshin commented. "Open communications. Let us see what these primitives want." The response came instantly, in perfect Haelor harmonic language. Admiral Morrison's voice carried through their crystalline network with unexpected clarity. "This is Admiral Catherine Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. You have attacked and destroyed a civilian vessel in neutral space. Return our people, or face the consequences." Laughter rippled through the Haelor fleet's communication network. Varshin's response dripped with crystalline contempt. "Your vessel has been preserved in our database. Its organic components are being studied. Your technology is primitive, your threats meaningless. Surrender your vessels for collection, and we will ensure your species is properly cataloged in our archives." The human vessels maintained their position, their formation loose and seemingly chaotic compared to the Haelor's perfect geometric arrangement. Morrison's next words carried a tone that should have warned them, had they understood humans better. "You're making assumptions about us based on what you see. That's a mistake." Her voice hardened. "Final warning. Withdraw and return our people, or learn why Earth doesn't have defense treaties with anyone." Varshin's crystalline form vibrated with amusement. "Deploy collection arrays. Let us add these vessels to our specimen database." The Haelor ships began to shift, their perfect formation realigning into an attack pattern they had used successfully for millennia. Crystal facets realigned. Energy weapons charging with beautiful precision. That's when Admiral Morrison's voice came through one last time. "Remember, you chose this. All ships, execute pattern Sunstorm." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The human vessels moved in ways that defied the Haelor's tactical computers. The UES Retribution's hull suddenly blazed with electromagnetic energy, turning the entire ship into a massive coil gun. The UES Thunderchild executed a maneuver that should have torn any solid object apart, its flexible hull flowing like quicksilver. The UES Ghost Dancer simply vanished from sensors entirely. "Impossible," Varshin's tactical officer chimed in alarm. "Their hulls are reconfiguring at the molecular level. These aren't ships, they're weapons." Morrison's voice cut through their confusion. "Everything humans build can become a weapon. You wanted to study us. Study this." The UES Retribution's first shot punched through the lead Haelor vessel's perfect crystalline hull like it was glass, The electromagnetic round accelerated to speeds that made the Haelor's energy weapons look primitive. The Thunderchild barrel rolled through a barrage of crystal beams, its adaptive hull absorbing and redirecting the energy back at its attackers. And when the Ghost Dancer reappeared behind her formation, shifting into visible space like a phantom, Varshan finally understood the fatal error in their assumptions. These humans hadn't built ships with weapons. They'd built weapons that could fly. The battle that erupted in the neutral space sector would redefine space combat doctrine across the galaxy. As the Haelor fleet's perfect formation shattered under the initial human assault, Commander Varshan watched in crystalline horror as everything he knew about warfare crumbled. Impossible, he chimed through the fleet network. Their ships are changing configuration mid-battle. Tactical computers cannot predict their movement patterns. The UES Retribution carved through space like a predator, its hull rippling with electromagnetic energy. Admiral Morrison's voice carried across all frequencies, calm and collected. You studied our civilian ships and thought you understood human engineering. You didn't realize we build our warships differently. As if to emphasize her point, the Thunderchild executed what the Haelor had deemed an impossible maneuver. The vessel compressed its entire structure, flowing like liquid metal through a gap between two crystalline ships, its hull redirecting their energy weapons back at them. Captain Sarah Williams' laughter echoed through the comm. Rigid ships make rigid thinking. Time to show them some flexibility. The Ghost Dancer phased back into visible space behind the Haelor's rear line. Captain Marcus Reynolds' voice was almost cheerful. Quantum field generators at full power, showing these crystal cowboys why you can't predict what you can't see. Varshan's tactical officer's harmonics reached a pitch of panic. Commander, their vessel's molecular structure, it's not fixed. They're reconfiguring their entire ships into weapons systems. The UES Hyperion demonstrated this by transforming its forward section into a massive particle accelerator, the entire ship becoming a weapon that fired a concentrated beam of exotic particles. The beam struck a Haelor cruiser, causing its perfect crystalline structure to resonate at frequencies that shattered it from within. Target their fleet center, Morrison commanded. Show them why geometric perfection is a tactical weakness. The UES Stormbreaker unleashed a barrage of kinetic rounds, its entire hull functioning as a rotating mass driver system. The rounds struck the Haelor formation where their geometric pattern was most vulnerable, sending crystalline shards spinning through space. Tactical analysis impossible, Varshan's combat computers reported. Human vessels violating expected physical parameters, combat algorithms failing. Morrison's voice cut through their confusion again. You built your ships to be perfect. We built ours to be adaptable. Evolution over perfection, every time. The Thunderchild demonstrated this philosophy by absorbing a direct hit from a Haelor capital ship's main weapon. Instead of shattering, its hull transformed the energy into plasma, redirecting it through newly formed conduits. The ship's structure flowed like water, healing damage even as it pressed the attack. All ships, execute maneuver Hydra, Morrison commanded. The human vessels moved in concert, but with a controlled chaos that defied prediction. Each ship seemed to operate independently while somehow maintaining a cohesive assault pattern that trapped the Haelor fleet in a web of crossfire. The Ghost Dancer flickered between normal space and quantum phases, appearing at impossible angles to deliver precision strikes against the Haelor ship's structural weak points. Found their resonance frequency, Reynolds reported gleefully. Their perfect crystalline structure has perfect crystalline fault lines. Varshan watched in mounting horror as his fleet's formation collapsed completely. The human ships weren't just fighting. They were adapting to every Haelor tactic in real time, their organic metal hulls learning and evolving mid-battle. This is impossible, he broadcast. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are organic. Wrong on both counts, Morrison replied. Our ships aren't just organic or just mechanical. They're both. Evolution gave us the template, but human engineering made it into something new. We don't build ships to carry weapons, Commander. We build ships that are weapons." As if to punctuate her point, the Retribution's entire hull transformed into a massive electromagnetic accelerator, the ship's very structure becoming a weapon that fired a shot which split Varshen's flagship in half. The battle ended not with a grand explosion, but with the silent shattering of crystalline hulls and the humbling of an empire's pride. As the surviving Haelor ships retreated in disarray, Morrison's final message followed them. "Tell your empire what you saw here today. Tell them why humans don't need traditional weapons. We have something better: imagination." Supreme Crystalline Apex Barthul stood before the Grand Assembly, his crystalline form pulsing with barely contained fury. The destruction of Commander Varshen's patrol fleet had sent shockwaves through the Empire's perfect order. In 10,000 years of expansion, no species had ever destroyed a Haelor battle group. These humans, his voice chimed through the crystalline chamber, dare to challenge perfection with chaos. Their ships mock the very laws of engineering. They must be reminded of their place in the cosmic order. The assembly hall's walls shifted, displaying tactical readouts of the largest fleet gathering in Haelor history. 500 capital ships, each a masterwork of crystalline engineering, assembled in perfect geometric formations that stretched across space like a lattice of stars. Grand Admiral Zelvor, his crystalline form shaped by countless victories, stepped forward. "The invasion fleet stands ready, Supreme One. We will crush these primitives and add their worlds to our collection." Barthul's form resonated with approval. "Show them the price of defying perfection." The Haelor Armada emerged from FTL at the edge of the Sol system, expecting to find a primitive star system ripe for conquest. Instead, they encountered humanity's greatest achievement, a solar system transformed into an interlocking fortress. Multiple defensive installations detected, the fleet's sensor officer reported, his crystalline tone wavering. "The entire asteroid belt. It's been converted into a networked weapons platform." Zelvor's perfect form flickered with disbelief as the tactical display updated. Every planet, moon, and significant orbital position had been modified. Venus's toxic clouds concealed thousands of defense platforms. Mars's moons housed massive shipyards that were already launching vessels. Mercury's surface gleamed with solar collection arrays that powered system-wide defense grids. "Impossible," he chimed. "They couldn't have built all this since our first encounter." They didn't. Admiral Morrison's voice cut through their communications network. "We've been building this for centuries." Paranoid? Maybe. Prepared? Absolutely. The Earth itself came into view, surrounded by orbital rings that hummed with power. Defense platforms shifted and transformed, demonstrating the same adaptive technology as human warships. Every asteroid, every orbital station, every defense satellite showed the same frightening ability to change and evolve. "Your empire isn't the first threat we imagine meeting among the stars," Morrison continued. "We've had a long time to think about this, to prepare, to build." Zelvor's tactical display suddenly blazed with new contacts as hidden installations activated throughout the system. The humans hadn't been hoarding resources, they'd been constructing the most comprehensive defensive network ever conceived. "All ships, battle formation," Zelvor commanded. "Show these primitives the might off." His order was cut short as the first wave of human defenses activated. The asteroid belt erupted with weapons fire, each piece of space rock revealing itself as a carefully disguised weapons platform. Solar mirrors around Mercury focused intense beams of stellar energy. Venus's atmosphere rippled as hidden platforms emerged from its toxic clouds. And through it all, Admiral Morrison's task force dropped out of FTL behind the Haelor fleet, cutting off their retreat. "Welcome to Sol," her voice carried a hint of satisfaction. "You may have started this war, but we'll finish it." Zelvor watched in horror as his perfect formation began to break under simultaneous attacks from all directions. The humans hadn't just prepared defenses, they'd turned their entire solar system into a weapon. "You wanted to study humanity." Morrison's words echoed through the Haelor command network. Study this. We survived every extinction-level event our planet threw at us. We evolved, adapted, and thrived. Did you really think we wouldn't be ready for threats from the stars? As the battle began in earnest, Zelvor realized too late that they had made a catastrophic error. They had judged humanity by their visible technology, never considering that beneath the surface of every planet, hidden in every asteroid, lurking in the shadows of gas giants, humanity had built an arsenal that would make any invader regret their choices. The Sol system wasn't just defended. It was armed to the teeth, and every weapon bore the mark of human ingenuity, the ability to adapt, to change, and to evolve even during combat. The battle for Sol system unfolded like a deadly dance of light and shadow. Grand Admiral Zelvor watched in mounting horror as his perfect invasion fleet encountered warfare beyond their comprehension. The humans hadn't just prepared defenses, they'd reimagined the very nature of space combat. Multiple quantum signatures detected. His sensor officer chimed in panic. Human stealth vessels emerging from dark space. The Ghost Dancer led a wolf pack of shadow ships, appearing from supposedly empty space to strike at the Haelor fleet's flanks. Captain Reynolds' voice cut through the chaos. Quantum phase drives at full power. Show them why you can't fight what you can't predict. The stealth vessels phased between normal space and quantum states, passing through the Haelor's defensive screens like ghosts. Their adaptive hulls shifted to expose weapon systems that seemed to ignore the laws of physics themselves. Meanwhile, the asteroid belt transformed into a lethal maze. What had appeared to be simple mining installations revealed themselves as massive rail gun platforms. Commander Jessica Hayes, coordinating the belt defenses, orchestrated a symphony of destruction. Targeting solutions locked, she broadcast, showing these crystal cowboys why we hollowed out these rocks. Thousands of magnetically accelerated rounds launched simultaneously, their paths cunningly calculated to use the asteroid's own gravitational fields for course corrections. The Haelor's perfect formation became their perfect weakness. Each shot that missed its primary target found another ship in the geometrically arranged fleet. Admiral Morrison's voice carried across all frequencies from the bridge of the Retribution. All Sol defense grid units, activate pattern Sunstorm. Show them everything. The space around Earth rippled as hundreds of orbital defense platforms transformed, their structures flowing like liquid metal to reveal weapon systems the Haelor had never imagined. The platforms linked together, forming massive energy collection arrays that harnessed the power of Earth's magnetic field itself. Impossible. Zelvor broadcast. Your technology cannot support such power levels. Wrong again, Morrison replied. We don't just build weapons. We build systems that work together. Everything in harmony, everything adaptable, everything connected. The UES Thunderchild demonstrated this philosophy by executing a slingshot maneuver around Jupiter that defied the Haelor's tactical computers. Captain Sarah Williams' laughter echoed through space. You think in straight lines and perfect angles. We think in gravity wells and solar winds. The Thunderchild emerged from its maneuver at impossible speeds, its hull transformed into a massive kinetic weapon. The impact shattered 3 Haelor capital ships, their crystalline forms breaking along perfectly geometric fault lines. From the clouds of Venus, squadrons of atmospheric fighters emerged, their hulls designed to transition seamlessly between space and atmospheric combat. They dove through the Haelor formation, their adaptive structures allowing them to execute maneuvers that would tear conventional ships apart. Status report. Zelvor demanded as his fleet's perfect order dissolved into chaos. Human vessels are. His tactical officers' harmonics wavered in confusion. They're learning, adapting to our weapons in real time. Every attack we launch teaches them how to counter it. The Haelor's energy weapons, devastating against conventional targets, found themselves increasingly ineffective. Human ships analyzed each hit, their hybrid hulls restructuring to better absorb and redirect the energy. What started as a crushing offensive became a desperate struggle for survival. Mercury's solar collection arrays focused the sun's power into coherent beams, guided by targeting systems hidden in Venus's toxic clouds. Mars's defense platforms added their firepower to the mix, creating a three-dimensional killing field that turned space itself into a weapon. "You attacked us." Morrison's voice carried no triumph, only grim determination. "You thought we'd be easy prey. But humanity learned long ago. The universe is hostile by default. We survived because we prepared for the worst. Every time." As his fleet crumbled around him, Zelvor finally understood. The humans hadn't built a defensive system. They'd created an adaptive, evolving organism of interconnected weapons platforms. Every piece supported the others. Every system learned and adapted, and at its heart was humanity's greatest strength, the ability to turn absolutely anything into a weapon. Supreme Crystalline Apex, Varthul's personal flagship, the Crystal Eternus, emerged from FTL like a newborn star. 15 kilometers of perfect crystalline engineering. Its hull facets caught and amplified sunlight into a display of power that would have cowed lesser species. The massive vessel dwarfed everything else in the battlefield, its very presence distorting local spacetime. Enough. Varthul's voice resonated across all frequencies, the crystalline harmonics of his speech translating into a thunderous broadcast. "You have fought well, humans, but now witness true perfection." The Crystal Eternus began to transform, its entire structure shifting into what appeared to be one massive weapon. Crystalline panels realigned, focusing stellar energy into weapon systems that could shatter planets. Lesser ships would have fled. The UES Retribution charged straight at it. "Admiral Morrison," Varthul chimed, genuine curiosity in his harmonics, "your vessel is 1/20th our size. This is not courage. This is madness." "No," Morrison replied, her voice steady. "This is physics." The Retribution's hull began to shift, but not into a weapon configuration. Instead, it seemed to be streamlining itself, becoming more aerodynamic despite being in space. The Ghost Dancer and Thunderchild moved to supporting positions, their own structures adapting in ways that made the Haelor tactical computers throw up error messages. "All ships, execute maneuver Newton's Revenge," Morrison commanded. "Let's show them why we paid attention in physics class." What followed would be studied in military academies for centuries. The Retribution used the Crystal Eternus's own massive gravitational field as a slingshot, its speed building to relativistic velocities. The Ghost Dancer and Thunderchild added their own gravitational wake, creating a complex series of forces that even the Crystal Eternus's perfect computers couldn't track. Impossible. Varthul's harmonics reached a pitch of genuine alarm. Their trajectory calculations cannot be accurate at these speeds. "That's where you're wrong," Morrison replied. "Humans have been doing orbital mechanics in our heads since we were throwing rocks at dinner. We understand gravity on an instinctive level. Want to know why?" The Retribution swooped past the Crystal Eternus in a maneuver that seemed to bend space itself, using the massive ship's own gravitational field to accelerate even faster. The Thunderchild and Ghost Dancer mirrored the movement on different axes, creating a gravitational lens effect that began to distort the perfect crystalline structure of the Emperor's flagship. "We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day," Morrison continued, her voice never losing its calm. "Gravity was our first teacher, our first weapon, our first tool. You grew your ships in perfect conditions. We built ours to survive chaos." The Crystal Eternus fired its main weapon, a beam of concentrated stellar energy that could vaporize conventional ships. But the human vessels were already moving in patterns that used the flagship's own mass against it. Each near pass added to their velocity, each gravitational slingshot building up forces that the Haelor's perfect crystalline structure was never designed to withstand. "Your ship is beautiful," Morrison acknowledged as the Retribution began its final approach. "Perfect in every way. And that's exactly why you're going to lose. Perfect crystals have perfect cleavage planes." The physics at play became clear too late for Varthul to counter. The human ships weren't attacking the crystal Eternus. They were using its own mass and energy against it. The gravitational forces they'd built up through their maneuvers, combined with the energy output of the flagship's own weapons, created harmonics that resonated through its crystalline structure. By the first crystal, Varthul whispered as he watched fracture lines begin to propagate through his perfect vessel. "You turned space itself into a weapon." "No," Morrison corrected as the crystal Eternus began to break apart along mathematically perfect lines, destroyed by its own structural perfection. "We turned your weapon into space. Newton's laws don't care about perfect crystalline structure. Mass times acceleration is mass times acceleration, no matter how pretty the mass is." As the pride of the Haelor Empire shattered into a billion glittering shards, Morrison's final words echoed through the cosmos. "Perfect isn't always better. Sometimes, good enough to adapt is good enough to win." The Genesis Point station hung in neutral space like a bridge between worlds, its structure deliberately incorporating both crystalline and organic elements. 1 month after the Battle of Sol, it served as the meeting ground for two species who had learned to respect each other through combat. Supreme crystalline apex, Varthul's form had changed since the destruction of the crystal Eternus. His once perfectly geometric structure now showed subtle irregularities, small imperfections that would have been unthinkable in Haelor society before the war. He stood in the station's grand chamber, facing Admiral Catherine Morrison, across a table made of both earth oak and Haelor crystal. "We believed perfection was the ultimate goal." Varthul's harmonics carried notes of humility that no human had heard before. That our crystalline nature represented the peak of evolution. We were wrong. Morrison nodded, her own bearing relaxed but alert. The space around them buzzed with activity as human and Haelor engineers worked together, each studying the other's technology with newfound respect. "The Lucky Strike's crew," Varthul continued, his form dimming slightly. "We preserved their final moments in our data crystals. Their courage, their defiance. It was not what we expected from primitive beings." At a gesture from the Emperor, a crystal matrix activated, projecting the final moments of the mining vessel. Captain James Cooper and his crew, armed with nothing but mining tools and determination, had damaged 2 Haelor boarding parties before being overwhelmed. Their last words were not pleas for mercy, but warnings to their attackers. "We have restored their remains with all honor," Varthul announced. "They will be returned to Earth, along with commendations for valor from the Empire itself." Their actions, though we did not understand it then, marked the beginning of our own evolution. Morrison accepted the crystalline container holding the crew's remains. They represented the best of humanity. Adaptable, resourceful, and unwilling to submit even when faced with overwhelming odds. The chamber's displays activated, showing scenes from the war that had reshaped both civilizations. The Haelor's perfect formations being broken by unpredictable human tactics. Human ships morphing and adapting mid-battle. The Sol system's defenses working in concert like a living organism. "We have added new laws to our ancient codes," Varthul announced, his voice carrying across the chamber. "First, perfection without adaptation is stagnation. Second, judge no species by their appearance, but by their achievements. And third," his form brightened with what humans had learned to recognize as amusement, "never provoke the humans. They don't build weapons. They turn everything into weapons." The assembled diplomats and officers, both human and Haelor, shared a moment of understanding. The peace treaty being signed was not just an end to hostilities, it was the beginning of a partnership that would reshape the galaxy. "Your ships," Varthul observed, "they are like your species, constantly changing, adapting, evolving. We thought this was chaos. Now we understand it is strength." Morrison smiled. "And your crystalline technology has already helped us improve our own designs. Perfect structure combined with adaptive capability. Together, we're better than either of us were alone." The station's views showed the first fruits of this cooperation. New vessels under construction that combined Haelor crystalline precision with human adaptive technology. The result was something entirely new, just as the relationship between their species had evolved into something unprecedented. "The Lucky Strike's crew," Morrison said, rising to address the chamber, "gave their lives in humanity's first contact with your species. But their sacrifice led to something neither of us could have achieved alone. The understanding that perfection isn't about being flawless. It's about being able to learn, to grow, to evolve." As the peace treaty was signed, a new vessel emerged from the Genesis Point shipyards. Its hull was a seamless blend of crystalline and organic technology, named in honor of the crew that had started it all. The Lucky Evolution. Varthul's final words would be recorded in both human and Haelor histories. "We sought to study humanity. Instead, they taught us that true perfection lies not in unchanging form, but in the endless capacity to adapt and evolve. This is their gift to us, bought with courage and sealed in peace."